is a time of the year where we find ourselves drawn inward, taking stock of the year that just ended and the year to come. I want to acknowledge first that many people found this past winter holiday a bit challenging to navigate. You may have found yourself wanting to shelter in place against the frigid weather, even in Southern California, having interruptions to your travel plans and missing family get-togethers. However, it's also a time for reflection, for setting new intentions for the coming year, and a time for regeneration. As I was preparing for the sermon, I was reflecting on this term, regeneration, and started thinking about all of the different meanings that this can hold. Take, for example, of how gardens and farmlands need to rest, renew, regenerate. Again, part of this concept of wintering. And in contemplation of this idea of regeneration, I was remembering a term I recently was introduced to called fallowing. It applies to crops and gardens. That means you leave the field unseeded during a growing season. Typically, this starts in winter. It can be short, it can be one season, 1 year, 5 years, depending on how depleted the soil was. Now, sometimes livestock is actually allowed to wander these fields. They forage and allows the animals to also replenish the soil by adding their own nutrients delivered to the soil. The goal of fallowing is to give the soil time to replenish, but by allowing it to do its own thing in its own time. It was actually in a Hebrew Bible class that I recall hearing this term of fallowing the first time. We were studying the scriptures with an eye as how to terms called flip the script, which is, in other words, how do we find passages in the Bible that spoke to liberation, to anti-oppression, to community? The key to accomplishing this is in the way you read these passages and how you interpret the text, not only with the time that it was written in, but also the message the text was trying to deliver. Again, the text that struck me regarding fallowing was when prophets were actually speaking to the people of Israel, instructing them how to work with the land and how to work with the people and how to do it for the benefit of both. There were 2 reasons to allow the land to fallow. The first was, of course, the resting of the land. The second was actually providing for the poorest of the community. So, let me give you an example. Exodus 23:10-11. Stay with me. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but in the 7th you shall let it rest and lie fallow. Let the needy among your people eat of it, and what they leave let the wild beasts eat. You shall do the same with your vineyards and your olive groves. And funnily enough, this is something we still do today. It's a process called gleaning, where people harvest and distribute the crops that are left over in the fields. Either whether it was mechanically harvested, or if the crop couldn't be mechanically harvested, or if it was just too costly to do it. So the crops that are gleaned are typically provided to those in need. There's actually an organization I found in looking this up called the National Gleaning Project that matches gleaners to organizations that help distribute that food, facilitating this ancient act of kindness. So my thought was, is there a natural linkage here? Are we, our lands, are we connected? Do we have the same needs in ourselves? Do we have that same need to allow ourselves to rest and lie fallow? I say yes. And right now is as good a time as any to really think about how and why. This first day of January, each year we're asked to make resolutions. as to the things we're going to do, or equally important, not do in the new year. It's probably not a big surprise that a lot of these resolutions that people make each year are the same ones they made last year, but never quite got around to doing. I looked this up. The top 5 most common New Year's resolutions are: exercise more, lose weight, get organized, learn a new skill or hobby, and topping this top 5 chart most recently is a desire to live life to the fullest. The last one has moved up the charts in the last couple of years and can be wildly encompassing of a lot of activities and a lot of actions. What we don't typically see on these lists: rest more, allow myself time, allow my mind to regenerate even for just a little while. We are saturated in daily news, information, challenges to our time and attention. And then we're made to feel guilty if we take a little me time. It's going to make taking this time even that much more difficult. There's also an unfortunate idea that resting fallow or taking care or regenerating is synonymous with being lazy, or at the very least not productive. There are judgments that bombard us every day, particularly in this American society, that sees taking time to rest and renewal as a weakness. It's seen as a cultural imperative to always be busy, to work harder, to have multiple hobbies, to live life, but not so much living life as you gain weight. So there's still a balance there. And while on the other hand, we're encouraged to take time for ourselves to ensure that we're replenished so we can help replenish others. How do you do it both? If we briefly revisit Exodus one more time, we follow this whole concept of fallowing a little further and how we apply it to our everyday. You might be familiar with this passage. Remember the Sabbath day. Keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. On the 7th day, the Sabbath of the Lord your God, in it you shall not do any work. You, your sons, your daughters, your male servants, your female servants, your livestock, any sojourner that is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven, the earth, the sea, all that's in them, and rested on the 7th day. So at the risk of being really irreverent up here, if God can do it and tells us to do it, why can't we do it? The idea of resting fallow as a human is also supported, believe it or not, in the field of psychoanalysis as being beneficial to us. According to a British psychoanalyst, Masad Khan, this is a good quote, lying fallow is a transitional state of experience, a mode of being that is alerted quietude and receptive, wakeful, lambent consciousness. Or in other words, we should allow ourselves time to just be with that little flickering glow of consciousness, to find the stillness in us that allows us to be awake and perceptive without needing to be actively engaged with anything. Imagine doing that. This allows us to regenerate ourselves without needing to turn off entirely, just lying fallow. Now, I don't know about you, but that was a really appealing idea to me. So, again, at this time of year, we take stock of ourselves, deciding what's most important to us. I ask you to take a moment and just kind of think with me. about what lying fallow would mean to you. For as the Dalai Lama said, we are human beings, not human doings. Now, over this past holiday season, Angela and I committed to watching 25 holiday-themed movies between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we actually ranked them. Surprising, right? Yeah. We gave each a score, scientifically based on the theme, the acting, how it made us feel. Believe it or not, this is the 4th year we've done this. Now, the point is not because we love holiday movies. Some of them we had to endure. But the point is not that. The point is that time of year is so frenetic, so many things moving. We find ourselves, we want to ensure we had time together. We wanted to be able to slow down. We wanted to let our minds unwind for a while. And so that might sound a little bit of an unorthodox way of fallowing. It works for us, and it's a tradition we keep doing. And for me personally, looking into this new year from the holiday season, I took time away from my keyboard, away from my class assignments, away from the many, many, many books that are sitting on that shelf waiting to be read. And now I can face it again. Now I have that regeneration that I needed to be able to plow into this new year. Now, I acknowledge again, this might not be something everybody can do. There's pressures of job, there's families, there's volunteering, there's everything that life throws at us. Time to take for ourselves is even more precious and needed. With all of this compounded with the spiritual, emotional, physical, and sometimes financial injuries we've seen from COVID, is it any wonder why people seem to be looking for that brief respite? Don't we all deserve that? The problem with free time is we spend so much time yearning for it that when we actually have it, we don't know what to do with it. How do we decide? How do we allow ourselves this opportunity to fallow? We might stop and reassess how we spend those most precious moments of our time and attention. Where were you focused last year? What were the values that were most important to you? Maybe they weren't fully realized. So the answer to the question I asked before is very individual. I believe there are some key things that we can apply to everybody. I think one of the most important things we can do is, again, determine what values we're coming into this year with. Do we need to work on work, relationships, ourselves? Then what do we need to do to allow ourselves to replenish and look at these values again? You might find it difficult to accomplish this if you're not rested in your body and mind. When you sleep, dedicate time to really sleep. And you've all heard this before. Turn off the electronic devices. Turn off the TV. Dedicate the time to allow your mind to just wander, to go to those new fields of interest. Meditation, prayer can also be seen of ways of allowing that mind the opportunity to rest, but still be there. Sit and read a book with no other intentions or distractions. Play with that child, that grandchild, at their level for the sake of play and play alone. Or just sit and do nothing, but do it mindfully. Ask yourself, what is most important now, here? What do I want to plant in my fallow field. Cultivate a better understanding of what it means for you to lay fallow, to regenerate. Then allow yourself the spaciousness to do it, to make that happen at your own needed pace. Amen, and blessed be.